Muskies on the fly. People keep asking me about Muskies on the fly. When are you going to do a TV show about Muskies on the fly? So me not being a fly guy, I go to the only fly guy I know, Jeff Pierce, and I say, who fishes muskie on the fly? And he says, well, there's a guy by the name of Chris Willen, right in my area, by the way. So here we are. We're going to do muskie on the fly in the Hayward, Wisconsin area. We got lakes here, we got rivers here. He likes to do that. He's got these floaty boats. Look at what they did to the front of my boat here. They got this goofy looking string all over it. You notice they're both barefooted. Have you ever seen anything like this? Well, either way, we're going to show you the next bite.
Just looking for the next bite, next bite, next bite. Just looking for the next bite.
We'll continue to show you the next bite.
Musky fishing is filled with many different types of anglers, all of which have their own unique styles to chasing their favorite top-tier freshwater predator. However, professional angler Pete Mena, Hayward area guide Chris Willen, and fly fishing expert Jeff Pierce may all come from different styles of fishing, but they do all have one thing in common, and that's a mutual respect for the challenge of any approach to triggering a muskie to bite.
You know, it's really interesting in doing this fly fish and shoot for muskies. I've never seen a muskie fly before. I've done a little bit of fly fishing for northern pike, and I've seen times when these flies will work when nothing else does. The one observation that I have, it really falls into the patterning deal and pressured fish. These fish are caught and released multiple times. They see all different types of lures, and I'm always talking about trying different things, something different, whether it be jerk baits, you know, soft plastics, whatever it might be, switching up, trying different things that the fish haven't seen. I'm watching these musky flies come in, and it's just something different. They have a tremendous action. I'd call it more of a finesse type presentation. Should be tremendous in cold fronts and just in general when conditions are tough, but they're always moving. Even on a pause, they just kind of hang there and they undulate. Real neutral, neat presentation. And frankly, one of the real important things too is it's just not seen very often by musky fishermen. It's really a neat presentation.
Oh.
What happened, dude?
You know, I felt them when I was here, and I didn't have the set. Well, I just missed one at the boat here, and it's been casting for a while, and you know, it was a little bit of a bummer, but it brings up a good point on how we set the hook with these fly rods for muskies, because you know, you can't just set the hook with the rod like you would with a conventional tackle. You'll never get the hook penetrated through their mouth. So it's important when you set the hook on these fish to do what we call a strip set. So you're stripping your fly in, and you get a fish to eat it. What you're gonna do is you're just gonna do what's a strip set, and you're just gonna keep pulling, set that hook, point straight at it, and that straight pull right there is what's gonna drive that hook point home and get you all the way to the bend here. So you've got that hook in that fish, so then you can raise the rod, keep the tension on it, and then get that fish in.
Oh, we got wind picking up a little bit. We've just had a follow and a strike in a long time out here in the lake. And Chris, this is kind of unusual. He says, hey, I got a couple of holes we can wade to and try, blow a dam on the river. So something really unique, we're gonna go give that a try. We're gonna go jump ankle deep in the water and see if we can catch one now.
Rivers and larger streams can be overlooked as key systems for muskies. With their current breaks they provide, creating other areas for predators to hide and ambush their prey. Current seams and eddies can often yield higher numbers and more concentrated bites, which means increasing your chances of success inside a smaller targeted area.
Treat these dams almost like a big rapid. You know, you've got your slow water over here, so your high percentage area is gonna be sitting along these rocks. They're gonna be facing that way because the water's coming this way. Or they'll be right here in this corner where this rough stuff is, along those edges, and all in these little slack corners just waiting for stuff to go. And what's really cool is sometimes they're like hanging in that, underneath that rough water. There'll be almost a soft spot.
Yeah.
And you can kind of work your fly and you can feel it, and then all of a sudden, thump. And it's cool because they're in that big current and they're going. And this is when you get to use the reel big time with musky fishing.
So these fish are in the current, then you want to be over there?
Oh no, I'm going to cast.
And you're bringing it right over the top of it.
Bringing it right towards
to get that reaction strike.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh! It was! Tiger musky.
The next bite is brought to you by Mercury, #1 on the water. Amsoil, performance for serious adventure. Tracker Boats, fish the finest. Bass Pro Shops, your adventure starts here. Berkeley, catch more fish. Mustad, stay sharper longer. Lowrance, find, navigate, dominate. Motor Guide trolling motors engineered for anglers. Strike King, legacy of domination for 50 years. And Power Pole, swift, silent, secure. After a long day of casting on the lake with only a few follows and a painfully close encounter with a mistake on a fly,
Never give up.
Chris, Jeff, and Pete decide to try their luck on one of the Hayward area rivers, drifting the current with Chris's guiding partner, Lucky. Before heading out, Chris reminds Pete that however ingrained his instincts may be at this point, his conventional hook set will not work with a fly rod.
You'll never get it out of my fingers. Now point and do the strip set a couple times.
Oh, this is going to be tough to remember. Well, it does definitely load up.
And I'm trying. I can't hang on to it when you do that.
Right.
You know?
No, you really can feel it. So let's practice out in the river. There's too many bugs here by shore.
So up here in northern Wisconsin, there's tons of lakes that have muskies in them, but what we specialize in is these river floats fly fishing for muskie. And what's really cool about these rivers is there's not a lot of pressure on them, so these fish are a little bit more eager to play the game for us. In the springtime, we're catching these fish coming off the spawn. They're going to be coming out of these feeder creeks. A lot of that shallow water up sunning in the sand or up in these riffles and below the rapids is a really good summer pattern. As the season progresses into September, October, these fish start dropping down into the system a little bit more, going into the deeper water, the holes and some back eddies. And what's really cool about these fish with these flies is they really react to how these flies move in the current. You can pause that fly and it's still sitting there undulating and moving and turning, and that's great. You stop it and it's not going anywhere, but it's still moving. That drives those muskies crazy. So what's really cool about fly fishing these rivers is that your high percentage areas are a lot smaller. Whereas you're in these big lakes, you've got maybe a 100-yard weed line to fish. That's just not the case in the river. You've got these smaller eddies, maybe spaces behind a rock where that fish is holding away from the current. You've got just a little bit more of an opportunity in the river to put that fly in front of an active fish in a smaller area and get that big fish in the net.
So we're floating this beautiful river, and I've actually given a lot of effort to this fly fishing thing. Hey, I love it. I think I was doing pretty well, but you know, their old habits die hard. We got one on their Norwegian fly rod. The old ways came through and I decided that I had to throw a bucktail a little bit and a couple other baits to cover some water. Well, that was cool seeing that right in the current, man. Just, whoa. I'm like, wow, I didn't think they bit in that skinny water like that. I apologize, you guys, for giving up on the deer hair there for a little while, but it's just, there's, you know, 3 decades worth of, you know.
It's completely understandable.
Yes, well,
It's okay, Pete.
Mad boy, mad boy. That was cool. You guys see that leap? Was that what was that, like a double Sam Woo or something like that it did there?
You pulled the double sow cow on
Yeah,
you.
well, that's what it did. It's doing one right now. I think we'll let her go. I guess that's the waving goodbye deal there. There's wanting to go. Zoom! On out of there. This is kind of fun. I like this river stuff.
The Real Deal, real fishing information from real fishing experts, presented by Amsoil.
Well, this is my baby. This is my workhorse. A lot of times when I go out ice fishing, you know, I'm carrying either a lot of equipment because of the TV show or just going out with a big group of anglers. And because of that, I got to carry a lot of stuff. I can carry a couple augers on here, can carry a couple one-man shelters on racks on the front and back. I can even pull 1 or 2 shelters behind this thing. So this thing does a lot of work and it gets a workout. So because this sled works so hard, and of course it's always out in cold conditions, what you really want to look at is a synthetic oil. Now, why is synthetic so important? The first reason is that when you go to start this engine, you need it to turn over quickly in the cold. You know, if you've got a battery started one like this, you don't want to wear down your battery. And if you're pull starting it might be even more important because you don't want to wear down yourself. The second time that this is really important is when the engine first starts. What you need is for fluid to start moving quickly through the engine. And because synthetics doesn't gum up and doesn't get gooey like regular oil, it moves very quickly and protects the engine right away. Most of your wear and tear on your engine is actually when you first start it up, especially in cold weather. The last situation where this is real important is, of course, when you get out on the lake. You just got a lot of gear here, you got cold weather conditions, you got a lot of weight you're pulling, so having good lubrication is super important. You know, the guys on the AMSOIL snowmobile race team rely on this particular oil in their high performance engines. My engine's high performance too, so this is the oil that I'm going to use.
So we're up here in northern Wisconsin chasing muskies on the fly. When most people think fly fishing, they think trout fishing, little flies like this. Or maybe bass fishing, little flies like this. But up here, we're throwing some rather substantial stuff. But even though this is a big fly, it's not hard to cast. You know, we've got Pete up here. He hasn't done a whole lot of fly fishing, but Pete's casting better than a lot of guys I know that have been fly fishing for quite a while, probably because he hasn't done a whole lot of it. He's taken instruction and he's doing what you need to do. It's not that difficult if you have the right gear. So a big fly like this is actually really easy to throw with a line that has a sink tip. If you have a very aggressive taper, very heavy front to your fly line, you can actually throw a fly like this very easily. You can fish it all day long. It's just a matter of having the right gear. The guys you're going to fish with here have all the right lines. You don't have to worry about filling a truck with that kind of stuff. But if you have the right lines, you can throw a fly like this. You can throw a fly like this or a little trout fly. Easy to do, and when you see a muskie coming up behind this and opening his mouth, it's pretty cool when he goes crazy.
Well, it's interesting because I kind of felt like I should go back to the fly, but this section of river that we're floating today is actually quite big. There's a lot of space here. I feel a little incompetent behind Mr. Pierce because he casts so well, and I get a little better, but I'm really not that good. I think he liked the tube, but we're getting into deeper areas, nothing on the bucktail at all, and I'm like, well, I gotta go back to the tube. The revelation hits me. They were active on the tube, and I only throw it maybe 10 times, and all of a sudden I get this crunching strike about 15 feet from the boat. The tube is dead. It's gone. He destroyed it. And then there's the immediate panic because this white tube should, of course, be here in its mouth somewhere, and it's not anywhere near the mouth. It's slid up the line, and then next thing you know, it's literally gone, so I think the fish got away, but it didn't get away. I still have it. All that's left is a weight and a wire, and dude, that's one of the best jumps I've seen in a while. That's actually a nice one, man. I'll tell you what, I haven't seen one go that high in quite some time. Now I guess I get it back in here. Just gonna wanna go. Ooh, go! She go! She gone! She out of here!
Our leader setup for fly fishing muskies is pretty simple. We're gonna use what's called the level leader. It's about 30 inches of 40-pound monofilament or fluorocarbon, nail knotted to your fly line, down to a perfection loop. Then your next set of your leader is your fly with 10 to 12 inches of 40-pound wire, and you're gonna put your main line loop through your leader loop, bring your fly through the main line. Then you've got a nice clean connection there where there's no hinge points, no possibility of breaking. And the reason why we do this is so we have 3 or 4 flies on standby and we can switch those flies out a lot faster. We have an active fish or we move a fish, we want to try a different color. This is really fast and easy to switch. Down to our fly, we've got another perfection loop. And what that's going to do is just give that fly free range of motion in the current, let it turn, let it act natural. Your leader, you don't want it to be too long because we still have to figure 8. This is still musky fishing even though it's with a fly rod. If you've got a big long leader, you don't want to be stripping these knots into your rod. You get a fish on at the boat, it could get hung up, and then you've got a fish that's probably gonna break your rod. So nice short leader so you're able to execute clean figure eights. If you musky fish, you know it's a lot of work. It takes sometimes all day to get bit, so you get one bite, you don't wanna get bit off.
Hot topics, leading information, and tackle and techniques to make you a better angler. Presented by Mercury.
You know, slow death is a technique that has truly changed the world of walleyes in terms of just going out to catch fish and even tournament fishing over the last few years. And it's really that pretty simple setup, in being that it's just a bent Aberdeen hook, and a lot of times we're pulling it behind a bottom bouncer. And what we've found over the last few years is that it truly works anywhere. And when I mean anywhere, we've taken it out west where it really was originated and done well in Lake Oahe. We fish river systems with slow death and have caught tons and tons of walleyes on this technique. But what we've really looked at over the past few years is being able to expand this slow death technique into other worlds for walleyes. And when I mean other worlds, I'm talking about open water fishing, maybe on Lake Erie or Green Bay, and also using artificial tails, because so many techniques now, artificials work so well that it's really nice to not have to rebait your hook all the time. And the thing that we've found is this 4-inch gulp crawlers work really well. There's also that killer crawler from Berkeley Gulp that's worked well. But sometimes with these artificial tails, it can be a little bit tough to get these things to spin correctly to get the bites that you want. And this is where this hook kind of originated. This is the original slow death hook here, and this is the new hook from Mustad. It's going to be called the Super Death hook. And the first thing you'll see is the bend in this Super Death hook is way more severe. And the one thing that does is it allows these artificial tails to spin very easily. It's as simple as stringing up that crawler, or that artificial, this is that 4-inch gulp crawler like I was showing you. And the thing that you'll see with the severe bend, you just want to make sure that you're going right through the middle of that crawler. You string it right up, go right up over the eye of that slow death hook. But what we want to see with these artificial tails is we want to see that tail actually going on the bend of that hook, almost so it's like in an L-shaped form, and that will really get this tail here whipping in that spiral fashion that entices walleyes like crazy. We've seen over this past year in testing this hook that open water fish love this hook, and the reason being is that you can use a full night crawler. And when we're talking about open water walleyes, typically we're looking at pulling open water spinners or big crankbaits, because these fish are typically big and they're coming from a further distance away. So you need to have a presentation that has good size to it for these fish to see. By putting more bend to this hook, keeping all the strength that we had before, you're able to get that full crawler to spin. We're looking at taking the slow death presentation with this Super Death hook to a lot of different locations where maybe slow death hasn't worked so well in the past, and able to use these artificial tails now, full night crawlers, fish open water fish, and catch a ton of walleyes no matter where you are.
Even though Pete has been out fishing Jeff and Chris with his conventional fishing tackle, it's not enough to persuade them to make the switch. Fly fishing for muskies isn't just about the percentages, it's about the philosophy. Put more simply, it's a different presentation of the same stubborn, feverish passion.
Oh, there he is. Ooh. Whatever it was about 28 inches long.
After Jeff boats a few other varieties of river species on the fly, a final float over a known holding area for muskies gives Jeff a chance to truly show what these Esox fly fishermen live so long between bites for.
Coming down river right here, it's a nice shallow rocky area where we usually see some nice muskies, and all of a sudden the magic happened. Oh, there's one! Oh, good one! And it's the big white mouth opens, engulfs the fly. Fish is rolling and fighting really hard on the right side of the boat, goes around the front of the boat, gets on the left side. Stay tight, buddy.
I am.
Just rip that fish in.
Okay, I don't know what pound test you're using, so I just didn't want to.
If you break it, we got problems. There's no way.
That's all you needed to tell me.
Yeah.
And you know, I've caught some pretty big saltwater fish on fly, but when he said you can't break it, that was all I needed to hear.
He just came up and crushed that white fly.
Come here, buddy. Nice, man. That didn't take you long at all. I'm still practicing over here.
Woo! Here's the net.
There you go.
Who
said this was hard.
Oh yeah, here we go now. Really thick, solid river fish. A little bit different than lake fish. They don't really get bellied out. These fish are fighting current all the time and hiding behind stuff, so they're really streamlined. And
The flies we're throwing are pretty good size, I don't know, 10, 11 inches long, and that fish just swallowed it. Huge head. These river fish don't have big bellies like the lake fish do, and just a big old yap on it. And that fly was quite a ways down there, but thankfully no bleeding, anything. Chris got that hook out real good. Fish was healthy, great color on it, pretty thick. 41, I guess, inches long. We'll call it 48 in a week. And it's awesome when you do all the right stuff, you get paid when you catch a good fish, and then you let that fish go and she just cruises off happy as can be. Sweet!
yes, brother.
Nicely done.
That was worth 9 hours of driving.
I was just gonna say.
I'll drive 30 hours for that.
And action.
You do the yoga thing, don't you?
Yeah.
We can put a Mr. Heater up front and you can do hot yoga.
I mean, this is no time to experiment, guys, especially with me in the front. Hey, Mina's in there. Let's send him over a new spot.
That was a big one. I got cat-like speed and reflexes.
Look, it's a squirrel.
A yellow one.
Lunchtime. Burn a lot of calories casting wet muskrats.
You're done.
Yeah, but I didn't think that happened to you.
Well, you know, even Babe Ruth strikes out.
All right, I'm coming. I'm coming, Elizabeth.
The Next Bite would like to thank Chris Willen of Chris Willen's Guide Service and Custom Fly Design. For more information on Chris and his guide and fly tying services, visit www.chriswillen.com.